Because of various issues, Africa is not often, or rather is often seen as a high-risk place to do business in. Isak Pretorius, chairman of YPO Pan Africa, joins us now for more. Isak, looking at some of the issues facing the South African continent, there are quite a lot of them. Let's start on things maybe from a regulatory perspective. I understand that there isn't too much of a common ground when it comes to doing business among various African countries.
Yeah, I mean, I think we see a challenge in that we're dealing with different legal systems. They come from a different base. So depending whether you dealing in Francophone Africa or some of your British colonies really still following very strong British processes, etc. So I think companies do find it quite difficult to navigate that, as well as then navigating some of the other complexities of language and dealing not just with a legal system or process that they're not used to, but also dealing with some of the language challenges and barriers. I think, though, to a large extent, that's actually not necessarily as big an issue as what it may appear to be on paper. I think generally businesses actually find more of an issue when ground and start to deal with some of the practical challenges of physically doing business in the markets.
I take it one of the practical challenges would be infrastructure. If you can't get into a certain area, how are you going to do business with them?
Yeah, and I think, infrastructure is a major challenge, because what it does is it affects every element of business. So it's not just getting into those markets and being able to move products in those markets, but if we look globally, many of the countries on our continent still rank in the top 20 or 50 logistics costs or infrastructure costs of doing business. And so what we find is that with this booming middle class that we're seeing in Africa, our consumer base is really growing across the continent. To get product to those consumers at a reasonable cost. And so what ends up happening is, as a result of the challenges around infrastructure and therefore the logistics cost being that much higher, many times what we see is a consumer on our continent is paying more for the product that they're consuming than many other places, or in some cases all other continents around the world.
So now that we know some of the issues that we face, how do we best go about solving them in the best way appropriately?
Yeah, well, I think, it's being innovative in the way we do business. And I think, this is one of the beauties of our continent, is the fact that, Africans are as entrepreneurial as what we are. There really is an entrepreneurial spirit. We have an ability to be able to get things done in difficult situations, and to be able to use our networks and come together. And this is where YPO is such an incredible strength to entrepreneurs and to those doing business in Africa, because as we network through YPO and we share ideas as peers, we're able to solve many of these challenges by coming together and really improving our businesses through the shared ideas and experiences that we exchange, but also through being able to literally leverage one business off of another. Because what we're seeing, I think, in Africa is the emergence of a lot of strong businesses, because they're focusing on a whole of value chain solution. So not necessarily owning everything in the value chain, but being able to connect the right dots at the right time. And so for me, I think networks like YPO, where we've got a global network of over 20,000 CEOs around the world, more than 670 here in Africa, being able to come together and solve these problems together. And I think that's one of the key solutions. Business, governments, we all have to work far more together in being able to solve the challenges that we face, because then we can build not just profitable businesses, but truly sustainable businesses.
Coming back to the YPO from an African perspective, are there any particular success stories that stand out?
For me personally, yes. We've had a number of cases where we've had a specific challenge in a country, be it a logistical problem that we may be having, or a problem with clearing a certain product, and have reached out to that YPO network and have had an incredible response. I must say it's kind of like having your own family spread all over the continent, and they're ready and willing to help you, but not just from a business perspective. I mean, personally, there's success stories and again. One more recently was somebody who was very ill and needed assistance in their business because they couldn't be there running their business, and literally a number of YPOs came together, and while this person was in hospital for some months, actually ran their business for him and took turns in doing so. And the net result of that was that while the guy was lying in hospital and recovering, his business was actually growing, not just continuing to operate. So there's many success stories, both personally and from a pure business perspective.
Isak, thank you so much for your time today. That was Isak Pretorius, Chairman of YPO Pan Africa.